What it do, cucks this? It's your boy the Hater, and it's time for an announcement. As the Hater nears 10,000 subscribers, I'm going to announce that when I do get 10,000 subscribers or so, I'm going to do another Hater reboot, cucks. Everything will be rebooted. This will be a hard reboot, not a soft reboot, because ain't nothing soft about the Hater. You understand me? Now, with that being said, help your boy get there by liking and subscribing today, cuckolds. If you don't subscribe today, then you ain't helping the Hater. It takes 1 second, and the vast majority of viewers across videos are not subscribed. You know, I know that I have my subscribers that watch my videos, but there's also a lot of people that come and go. And please just subscribe to your boy. You might even want to hit that bell icon because the Hater's putting out content like nobody else up in this bitch. You know what I'm saying? So you're going to be missing out. Now, with that being said, before we do the reboot, it's only fair that the Hater starts a new series called I Hate, motherfucks. I Hate. And today's video is I Hate Technical Wrestling. Not to be confused with Technical Wrestling Productions, which I also hate. But I hate Technical Wrestling. Now, before any of you jump out of your seats, you know what I'm saying, in protest, I'm talking specifically about the fundamental mechanics of technical wrestling and, more importantly, about the fan attitude towards it, right? Obviously, the Hater's not a fool. Shawn Michaels versus Kurt Angle, a very quote-unquote technical match, is one of my favorite matches of all time. So I don't necessarily hate the matches that are produced, but I hate the concept behind it. I hate the philosophy behind it. You know what I mean? And in my personal opinion, this joy and love of technical wrestling is the worst part of it. Now, wrestlers have many, we'll call them fighting styles, motherfucks. So we got like the luchador jumping around like a wasp, stinging the fuck out of everything. You know, we got your powerhouses. We got your brawler types like JBL. You know, then we got your technical wrestlers. Now, technical wrestler is just a word used to denote somebody who is of mediocre size doing something unimpressive, right? Because the little guys back in the day, like Rey Mysterio, could never make it as a brawler or a powerhouse. And he's quite frankly too small to be a technical wrestler as well, right? So he has to do crazy, wild shit to get some attention on him. And that's why he's Rey Mysterio. See what I'm saying? High flyers basically are high flyers out of necessity. You know what I mean? Someone like Jeff Hardy, who today would be like a bona fide heavyweight. Remember when Matt Hardy had like an entire gimmick where he couldn't get under 220 pounds to go for the cruiserweight title? Like CM Punk is billed at like 216 pounds. I mean, CM Punk would easily be a cruiserweight. Matt Hardy is like much bigger than CM Punk. Nobody back then was under like 220. And if they were jobbers, or, you know, they were called Rey Mysterio. That's basically it. All the other cruiserweights were basically jobbers. So there you have it. Now, with all that being said, technical wrestling was an offshoot of the little guy that needs to beat the big guy for, you know, purposes of kayfabe, right? So like, you know, it's really not believable that Kurt Angle, on appearances alone, could ever beat up somebody like Bradshaw or somebody like The Big Show or The Rock or even Triple H, right? Now, we know, obviously, that Kurt Angle is an Olympic gold medalist, so he would probably destroy most of these people, but there are limits to it, you know? The technical wrestler, like someone like Bret Hart, I almost said Brad Pitt for some reason, someone like Bret Hart, like he's not someone like, nobody will really believe that Bret Hart has any shot against like Farouk. You know what I'm saying? Like the only way you will believe that is if the government, right? The government of WWE tells you lies, right? They try to hide the truth like archdioceses. They lie to us. You know what I'm saying? If they're out there just straight up throwing lies at you and saying that, well, you know, ignore the fact that A-Train or Farouk are twice the size of Bret Hart, right? Forget about that. The government is telling you so. You know what I mean? Forget about that. These people are telling you that despite the fact that it's clearly obvious that Bret Hart has no chance, you're going to have to believe it because Bret Hart is just a better technical wrestler, right? I don't know why exactly, but they just say he's a technical wrestler. For some reason, Farouk or Bradshaw or A-Train don't have the capacity. They don't have, like, you know, the intelligence, I guess, to go ahead and straight up just like do what they need to do. You know what I mean? They don't have the ability to do something like the sharpshooter. They're just not smart enough, I guess. It's very, very odd if you ask me, right? Like, what's so technical about what Bret Hart did, right? What's so technical about what Benoit did? What's so technical about what Angle did, you know? Like, why are they better? You know, anyone can do a German suplex. You know what I mean? But anyways, technical wrestling then kind of became associated with a certain type of wrestler, right? Basically like the average guy, you know? And the average wrestler kind of represents the average human being. You know what I mean? The average wrestler represents me and you, right? We're not like, midgets, we're not Big Show. So it's like I think a lot of people gravitated towards them because it's these unremarkable dudes. It's just random dudes, Like, oh, the submission specialist. It's like, what are you talking about? The submission specialist, there is no submission specialist in WWE. Like, nobody does that. Nobody is out there, doing submission moves ad nauseum, right? Like, a submission specialist in WWE is just a guy that has a submission finisher. Like Daniel Bryan, he has like 3 submission moves. One of them is his finisher. The other 3 are just like regular moves. The reality is, they don't want you to know this, but the reality is that, like, you can make someone tap out to a headlock. If you apply a headlock correctly, like a neck crank, you can just make someone tap out in seconds, right? But none of these things make any sense. The technical wrestler, therefore, becomes this like unicorn, And people are like, oh, the technical wrestler is what makes everything good, And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever with any of that nonsense. We have technical wrestling out there, and people act like it's the highest level of wrestling. Now, sometimes if you have a spotty match, that's not good either. But like, let's take like Gunther, for example. This guy, I mean, you could say he's a brawler, but he really is a technical wrestler. He does these boring ass moves. Basically, technical wrestler is just like guy who does random ass boring moves, And then the standard becomes that like the best type of wrestling match is a technical wrestling match. Nobody really knows what the fuck this means. It's just like people who are normal sized doing normal shit that's usually really boring. You know what I mean? Just like the same move spammed over and over again, right? Because someone like Kane, like if someone like Kane, right, or Big Show is presented as being able to do all the moves that Benoit can do, well then what the hell's the point of Benoit, right? So Kane and Big Show have to effectively be nerfed. I'm using Kane and Big Show as an example, right? But anybody that's like of a significant size has to be nerfed, right? They have to like present them as being these retards that have 3 moves, right? And the reason they do that is so people like Shawn Michaels, who I like, obviously, Kurt Angle, who I also like, and other people that I don't like Bret Hart, and Benoit, that these boring ass motherfucks can look better in comparison. Oh, well, Benoit cannot do a chokeslam, but he can do a headbutt. He can do a German suplex. He can do like a dragon screw. Who cares? Who enjoys this shit, right? Nobody. These are just the guys that used to be jobbers. They just used to be the jobbers that the more remarkable wrestlers like Rey Mysterio and Big Show would beat, right? Rey Mysterio should be beating the likes of Chris Benoit because Rey Mysterio is more entertaining than Chris Benoit. The Rock should be beating Chris Benoit, and that's kind of how it was for the longest time. The Rock would beat that ass all the time. The Big Show would beat that ass all the time, right? But then WrestleMania 20 came along, right? And this is what I hate. Like, it's one of my favorite WrestleManias and one of my favorite main events, but not because Benoit is a technical wrestler. I just like the fact that he was a guy that put his ass out there. He was like this guy you could plug in into like any kind of main event situation. If you needed someone, if someone got injured or something happened, Benoit could take that spot. So, I like that he was rewarded for being a soldier. Ultimately, I fucking hate him because he's a murderous piece of shit. But, aside from that, I really enjoyed the fact that he won the Rumble at number 1, et cetera, et cetera. It is what it is. So with all that being said, we have a situation where now all of these mediocres are out there just being mediocres. You know what I mean? They're just straight up mediocres, and they're out there like wrestling each other, and people, they have nothing to like look forward to, so then they have to pretend that their wrestling is superior, right? And it's like nobody can really answer some of these questions, right? So for example, if you have someone like Benoit, like what makes Benoit a better wrestler than Shannon Moore? You know what I mean? Like what exactly is it, right? It's only the fact that Benoit goes out there and says, I'm the best technical wrestler. Like if Shannon Moore said that, it's like you wouldn't know any different. Who's a better wrestler, Benoit or Gunther? I mean, in my opinion, Benoit, because he almost never botched, but neither did Shannon Moore, right? Gunther botches all the time. But you would believe that, for example, Gunther is presented as a better technical wrestler than, let's say, like Damian Priest, right? Even though Damian Priest, in my opinion, is 100 times more entertaining. You know what I mean? He doesn't do anything different than Gunther. He also has 4 moves. It's just that his moves are like the Razor's Edge, the lifting flatliner. He does like a spinning kick. He does a choke slam. You know what I mean? And Gunther does like a chop, a clothesline, a sleeper hold, and a shitty powerbomb. But because he's shitty and nobody wants to just say, oh, his fighting style is like shitty jobber, They just make up the word technical, you know? And the part that, in my opinion, pisses me off the most and pisses off most people is this implication, right? When someone says technical wrestler, right? And they say things like technical work rate, right? Or they say things like, their technical ability, the implication is that somehow these people are just better, right? That's just what they're saying. Everyone's saying like, oh, they're better at their job than the guy who is not technical. But I don't really believe this. You know what I mean? Because the job is not about wrestling. Like, I hate to beat a dead horse, but if there's any video, this is the video that it has to be said in, right? The job is not about wrestling. Nobody cares about the wrestling part. Now, if the match is entertaining, in terms of kayfabe, that's good. Like, a personal favorite match of mine is X-Pac versus Shane McMahon at, I believe it was WrestleMania 15, right? It was a great match. There was a lot going on, a story being told. X-Pac, the product of the streets, against Shane McMahon from Greenwich, Connecticut, right? Triple H turns on X-Pac, right? I don't even remember the moves. I'm sure X-Pac did the Bronco Buster, and then he hit an X-Factor, and then he got pedigreed, and that's the end of that, The match was excellent. It wasn't technical at all. Shane McMahon didn't even know what he was doing back then. But it doesn't matter because the match was exciting for other reasons. But the way that people present it nowadays, it's like, oh, this guy deserves the title because he's a great technical wrestler. It's not a real sport. You cannot be a better wrestler than anybody, right? So like when people say, oh, person X is a better wrestler than person Y, in my personal opinion, the only criteria that matter are the entertainment factor, right? The overall presentation of wrestler X versus wrestler Y. Not who can do the moves better, because it's a fake sport. Even if you fuck up the moves, like all the women's matches, there's fucked up moves in every one of them, right? But it doesn't matter, because the show isn't about that. We tolerate it, right? Sometimes you do like a finisher, there's a complete miss. Michael Cole says, he didn't get all of it, or she didn't get all of it, and then there's still a pin. Oh, I guess it was enough. Yeah? Like, nobody cares if the match goes forward and is executed perfectly or not. I mean, obviously we prefer that it's executed well, but that's not the most important criteria, right? So for example, if someone says objectively, right? If someone says, I think that Rosie from Jamal and Rosie is a better wrestler than Gunther, this is a perfectly valid opinion to have. Now the counter argument almost always is going to be, oh, but Gunther's a better technical wrestler. And the counter argument to that should be, first of all, I don't acknowledge this shit at all. And two, even if he is, so what? So what? It's not a real sport. It's not a real art, right? It's just like acting, Some people think that Jack Nicholson is the best actor of all time. I personally think that there's many actors that are better for me because they're more entertaining to me. My favorite actor is Nicolas Cage. I've seldom seen a bad Nicolas Cage movie. That's what I use. I don't care, oh, he brought the character to life. I don't need him to. I know it's fake, right? You can take literally the best performance ever. Like there's a movie called Doubt starring Philip Seymour Hoffman, rest in peace, and Meryl Streep, right? I'm told this movie has like the best acting ever. So I watch it. Philip Seymour Hoffman was an excellent actor. Meryl Streep, who I don't like, is a good actress, right? She's good at what she does. However, the movie was boring as fuck. I don't enjoy this at all. I don't care if for a moment I'm like, oh, Meryl Streep really plays the role of a nun very well. I don't care. She's playing the role of a nun. It's boring as shit. I'd rather see Keanu Reeves in John Wick play an unbelievable role of an assassin that dodges bullets, basically. Because the movie is more entertaining. See what I'm saying? It wouldn't change anything if Keanu Reeves was a more believable assassin. Like, it's already unbelievable. Now, yeah, it would be cool if it was like Arnold Schwarzenegger or someone badass, right? But Keanu Reeves is plenty badass in his own way. So what I'm getting at here is this, right? I don't have to lose myself in the moment, right? That's, quite frankly, a little bit childish and, in my opinion, a little bit deranged. Like, at all points when I'm watching a movie, I know I'm watching a movie, right? Like sometimes I hear people being like, oh, I played this video game and it made me cry. And I'm like, why? It's not real. Like, that shit, right? Now, you can have an emotional connection to a character. No one's saying you can't. But in my personal opinion, that connection should end right before tears. I'd be like, get a fucking hold of yourself. Especially if you're a guy. If you're a man and you're crying because, oh, Daedalus was killed by Phantasius, nobody gives a fuck, dog. You know what I mean? It's weird. And it's the same thing with wrestling. If for a second you forget, oh, hold on a second, this is a fake sport, right? And you're like, but this guy does the fake sport better than this guy, to the point where it doesn't take me out. That's you fundamentally haven't understood what wrestling is. Wrestling is supposed to take you out, by its absurdity. For example, I knew the whole time that X-Pac and Shane McMahon are probably friends. Right? I know that they don't hate each other for real. I know that Triple H is friends with X-Pac, and he's not really betraying him. But in the context of the TV show, I'm like, oh, fuck, Triple H betrayed X-Pac, right? I wonder where the story's going to go next. But I recognize that it's fake, right? I'm not going to cry over the fact that X-Pac lost, right? That's why these new fans that cry when CM Punk comes back, it's fucking weird, man. You know, I'm not trying to like call out anybody specifically, but if you're crying because CM Punk came back to WWE, you're fucking weird. I'm sorry. Like, you're someone that, like, I would have mentally evaluated. I'd be like, yo, what's wrong with this guy? He can't control his emotions at all. You know? Now, like, you've seen it. If you've been to a WWE live show, or even if you've seen, like, sports in general, right? There are people, like, for example, I like AC Milan, right? And if AC Milan loses, it pisses me off. Like, if someone scores against AC Milan, I might even be like, oh, fucking hell, they scored against us. But then almost immediately, I'm like, okay, it's just a game. You know, I'm not going to lose my mind over it. It's just a game. It's just a silly ball game. And that's an actual game that has implications. You know, like that game determines whether we go to the finals, let's say, or not, which determines how much money we get next season, which determines the future of this club. But even then, I'm like, oh, at the end of the day, hold on a second, hater. Like, you got to chill. This is just a sports game or a sports match or a fight or anything like that, right? I am not this invested in other people's lives. And it's the same exact thing in a movie, right? Like, there's people I heard, like one of my buddies was telling me that he watched like Avengers like 19 or whatever. The hater doesn't watch superhero movies, but he watched the one where, spoiler, Iron Man dies, right? And then my friend was like, I cried when I watched this. I'm like, what? Are you fucking retarded? You cried when Iron Man died? Like, just think about the sentence. I cried when Iron Man died. Iron Man is not a real thing, dumb fuck. He's not a real person. Robert Downey Jr. is alive and well. You know, it's fucking weird to cry over, be like, oh, that was sad, you know, but like in the context of a movie or a show. Technical wrestling is the same exact thing. You know what I mean? It's just is what it is. You know, we've got technical wrestling and it's boring as shit. Nobody really likes it, but everyone pretends to because they want to have these educated opinions, right? That's what it fundamentally comes down to, in my opinion. The people, the educated wrestling fan, right? The Nas lover in terms of rap, right? Like, if rap, just like all music and all entertainment, is subjective. If someone prefers Britney Spears to Nas, they're not stupid or retarded, right? In fact, I would argue the opposite. A lot of people, obviously, prefer Britney Spears to Nas. Well, they're all dumb because they don't understand the depth of Nas' lyrics. Get the fuck out of here, you know what I mean? Get your head out of your own ass, all right? It's as simple as that. It's the same thing with games. Like, the hater's a big-time gamer. I like RPGs. I like action games. I like adventure games. I like puzzle games too, you know? But I fucking hate when someone says like, oh, you play Call of Duty? Like, the hater doesn't even like Call of Duty. I don't play Call of Duty, but you hear this a lot. People are like, why don't you play a real game like Metaphor Refantasio instead of Call of Duty? Because, motherfuck, the person likes Call of Duty. It is completely subjective. One is not better than the other. You know, you can maybe make comparisons like in different Call of Duty games. You can be like, this Call of Duty was better than that one for these reasons. But cross-genre comparisons are going to depend a lot on preference. There are people who justifiably look at Final Fantasy games, which the hater loves, and say things like, this is fucking whack. Well, you got to click the button to do the magic spell. I'm like, yeah. They're like, why don't you do like a combination? People look at it differently. The point is, people have their opinions. But the opinions that people have with respect to wrestling go beyond the medium itself, especially when it comes down to technical wrestling, which is why I hate it. People pretend that for some reason, like, oh, you know, Daniel Bryan, like, it's like when I first heard of Daniel Bryan, I'm like, oh, this guy's like 5'3" or whatever. He's like 5 foot nothing. He weighs 100 and nothing pounds. I'm like, man, I can't wait to see what kind of crazy moves this guy does, right? I'm expecting this guy to be jumping off the walls like Rey Mysterio in his prime. Then this motherfucker does leg locks. And I'm like, how is anyone entertained by this? This is not believable at all. Like, of course, we have to, you know, suspend our disbelief for a little bit, right? Like, one time I was watching a match with my mom. It was like Great Khali versus Rey Mysterio. And my mom's like laughing her ass off. She's like, this is stupid. She's like, only dumb people could enjoy this because there's absolutely no way that Rey Mysterio has any chance to beat Great Khali. And then I'm trying to rationalize it to her. I'm like, well, Mom, if Great Khali trips and falls with his head between the ropes, Rey Mysterio swings his entire body to kick him in the head with both of his legs, called the 619, this might knock somebody out, right? And my mom just laughed. She's like, this is just stupid. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and she's 100% right. But in the context of that match, right? It's like if everything goes Rey Mysterio's way, and Rey Mysterio being like 150 pounds, if he swings his whole body, kicking the guy with 2 legs, that could hurt, right? But there's absolutely no way that Daniel Bryan can put Mark Henry in a leg lock unless Mark Henry allows him to. You know what I mean? Like, this is just like fantasies of the neckbeards. Oh, he's technically more sound than Mark Henry. Yeah, that's not how it works, motherfuckers. Oh, hater, Demetrius Johnson could do it. No, he couldn't, number one. And even if he could, that's Demetrius Johnson. This ain't Daniel Bryan, a fucking guy with like, a man bun. What the fuck are you talking about? So anyways, that's not here nor there, but the point is, technical wrestling is boring as shit. Nobody actually likes it. And quite frankly, nobody gives a flying fuck about any of this. So with that being said, cucks this, take care of yourselves, and go fuck your mothers up in this bitch.